Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony. Intel announces Tiger Lake. I went through and watched Intel's Tiger Lake announcement, their 11th gen series, their blueprint series that they're calling it. And it was an interesting announcement. It was pretty painful to watch. And I think Intel was trying to walk a line of giving us technical details, saying how good we are with beating our chests, and just throwing out so much marketing stuff to try to get you to buy it. That's all it was. And the way I looked at it, it was just marketing. Just that's it. It was just trying to get you out there, trying to get you to buy and say, "See, we still make something. You should buy it." That's just how I felt watching it. It seemed like you know, I mean, Intel must love the AMD's 4800U because that's all I heard about. I heard Tiger Lake, but I didn't hear a lot of what processors are out there, what Intel processors are releasing. And that maybe kind of shows you what Intel thinks about these. They don't want you to know their processors. They want you to know that there's Tiger Lake, that they've just announced Tiger Lake, and they have it out on 10 nanometer and they have it out on SuperFin, but they don't want you to know the processors that they have out there. They don't want you to compare the processors that are coming out in Tiger Lake to their previous gen because that wasn't there either. Really, in this whole presentation, there was a few things here, but it was painful to watch overall. I mean, wow, Intel, come on. Um, I'm sure that you could reach out to many different people and say this is what we're planning on doing, and a lot of people have said no. Take a step back and rethink about this. Just take a look at what Nvidia did. There's a reason why Nvidia came out. Everyone's talking about Nvidia. Um, they did a great job at their presentation. I kind of like it with the whole Jensen standing in the kitchen. That's kind of funny. But the big thing is that they talked about how their products are now, their current ones that they're coming out are better than their previous ones. That's what everybody wants to know. Like, where do you stand on your previous ones? Yes, the competition stuff, we'll find that out. There's review sites, there's testing. I don't technically trust Intel for testing. I don't trust AMD for testing. I don't trust Nvidia for testing. Why? Because they can cherry pick things to make them look good. So you telling us that you're so much better than the competition over and over and over again, uh, yeah, it doesn't make you look too good, Intel, because we're gonna independently validate it, and maybe you are true on that, but based on prior history, you have not been fully honest with everything you've done. So it's telling us about the AMD 4800U so many times that I know that product name ingrained in my head to the point where I do not know any of yours is a bad sign in a announcement of your own products, right? Then you called out the MX 350 against the XE graphics, right? And saying how much better it is. Yeah, you mentioned it a few times. That was a little bit better than the 4800U, but going through all this, Intel, then you didn't even mention Qualcomm's HCX that's going into laptops and two-in-one devices. Well, where's that? I mean, I know Qualcomm's announcing the next generation at the same time you're announcing your Tiger Lake stuff, but you could have gone against the previous generation and just see where that is. I feel like Intel's getting pinched from both sides. There you got AMD here, and then you got your low-powered Qualcomm, and Intel's trying to fit into this little sector right now. And is Intel going to be able to fit in there? That's one question I have, as it seems like in this release it's just not going forward. And Intel mentioned copycats and impersonators and everything else. Yes, AMD copied the naming scheme, and AMD was trying to get into for people to understand where things were coming from. And to the point, AMD has done this way too far. AMD is doing just dumb naming schemes now in their desktop and server laptop processors. Are kind of getting it all mungled up, which they have to look at that and they have to correct it. Hopefully, they were trying to do that for the graphics side, and maybe they'll kind of do this going forward. But I really hope that AMD kind of irons it out. I have some ideas for that. Maybe that's another video for another time. But that copying, yeah, companies copy. Let's see who can do it the best, and let's go from there, right? As long as you're not infringing on patents, it's pretty much where people are going to steal different ideas or copy different ideas because they're trying to sell to a consumer that understands a naming scheme or gets what they're trying to do, another company. And if you can go and do the same thing and get the same results, that puts you on the same footing. And Intel, what's wrong with it? Maybe you should start doing it, right? I'm guessing you're coming out with a multi-chip module MCM technology here where you're going to glue everything together, right? So isn't that just a perfectly fine idea? I mean, I think that's where you're going to go, Intel. So are you copying and impersonating AMD? Should we point that out? I mean, this is the petty stuff in a presentation that you should not have. One great thing though, let's jump into maybe some of the processors here. Actually, you know what? First, I want to switch you over to this. This is Intel's new logo. They kind of did the small I with Intel. They have different blues and everything else. There's a whole presentation on this, and I'm not going through it because it's just going to take too long. But here's some of the stuff. So as you can see here, here's kind of the little Intel with a small I and the core. Here's some of the new graphics that they have for Intel with Gen or XE graphics. Sorry here for Thin and Lights. My bad. I was just reading this and just understanding where I was. But they're going through and they're kind of, so this, like, all of a sudden, 4800U, not our previous gen, but take a look at that Intel processor. There's a reason why they say Tiger Lake. Intel Core i7 1185G7. Well, no one's going to want to say that, Intel. So they went through here, and like I said, I'm not going to focus really on this, but I do want to jump down to, they had workflows. They talked a lot about benchmarks. And one reason why I don't want to go through benchmarks is because I don't trust them. Intel's been known to go through and just go, and you can see kind of how this all is. Whoops. Oh, there it is. That's what I wanted. So Intel's, the last time they went through, they didn't do a great job here with, let me make that a little bit smaller. So that, if you see this little logo here in the bottom, that's another one, a different background, but the color, but it has the same, Intel spelled out. So this is the core processor. And what I really want to focus on is this operating range here. Actually, this is highlighted. Intel did highlight a slide with this. And talk a little bit about TDP. Intel's getting rid of TDP. Ryan Shrout, this is what maybe his best part of his whole presentation, which, he was part of PC Per, did a really pretty good job at PC Per for, the early years. And then as he was starting to get ready to go to Intel, and that's carried over. It's not really rock solid anymore. But this was part of his best presentation of this, and the operating range here for wattage. And this is what AMD should copy as well. Nvidia, all these companies should copy that. We have an operating range, not a TDP. TDP can be arbitrary, can be hard to understand, and I think Gamers Nexus did a video on TDP and how it's different. But the operating ranges here are pretty good, and this is the operating range that the processor will run in. And with configuring TDPs or configuring processor power usage, this is, I think, would be a good thing to go through. Now, we have to test to see if Intel's actually holding it to 28 watts of operating range, or does that still allow you to go over it? And until somebody gets this into their hands, that's the only really way to know it. And so this is, overall, right, according to Intel, you can have in this operating range a 33% difference in performance. So if you're trying to look at a processor in two different laptops, I think you almost have to say what the operating wattage maximum is, because trying to go through and now pick a system of what you want, let's say you pick two laptops, but you choose the one that's 33% slower and it's the same size, or it's close enough where you don't care, well, you just lost 33% without even noticing, because they were just calling it the same processor. So there is that aspect to it. Now that's been a problem with laptops before, but I think it's going to be a bigger issue, especially when you're losing 33%. And in these systems, as you can see here, I'm really hoping that Intel is going to release something else, because when you got 4 cores and 8 threads as your i7, I mean, yeah, you got 96 graphic EUs in there, but it is really concerning to me that you are um, only having, 4 cores and 8 threads. And that kind of goes into something I want to talk about, which is, and let's go up to this one without the red marks on it. You got 4 cores and 8 threads. And Intel in this presentation talked a lot about, hey, this is going to be future proofing your laptop. You can be using this to the years to come. And that would be true if I bought this laptop a couple years ago. Um, Intel, I think, has an identity crisis for this processor. Intel wants it to be something that you can game on, stream on, edit on. But at the same time, I think that they want this for something to be years to come, which is only going to be for the person that does maybe some light photo editing, maybe a little bit of dabbling in gaming, no streaming. I don't see this as something that's going to be holding up for years to come, because I do expect innovation in years to come. I do expect AMD not to sit still on just an 8-core, 16-thread processor in the U market that's competing with this. Yeah, you may be faster in your single threading, but a lot of times now, and Intel even said this in the benchmarking stuff, we have to benchmark with more than just one application open. We do more, like on my desktop right now, I am recording this video, right? And I have a Threadripper first gen. And so I got OBS open, recording. I got, my browser windows open. I got my email open. I got files open. I got, Skype open. So, and all these other programs, right? I have the my editing software open. I have a photo editing software open. So as this adds up, I will make this thing hurt, right? And so if you're trying to target somebody like me and saying this is going to be great for you because you can do all this stuff, Intel, I just don't see it. I'm making my desktop hurt. Now you want me to jump down to a 4-core 8 thread and say that's going to be able to get what I need done in a reasonable amount of time? That doesn't even stand with, like, I have a 6-core Dell laptop here. That's a 45-watt chip, and I make that thing heat up my basement like no tomorrow building code, because I also write software. So I feel like where is this product? It's so misguided right now. I don't know what Intel's trying to do, but they're trying to market it to everything when they should be marketing to a specific thing, where it's that, hey, you want that business going for checking your email. This is something that you can do. Respond to email. This is not going to be your workhorse for editing and everything else. I just don't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but the 4 cores, 8 threads, I just feel with consoles coming out with 8 cores, 8 threads, instead of the Jaguar previously, desktop systems going to 8 cores and more. You got 6 cores. And a lot of desktops is pretty mainstream now, and AMD even going up to 16, and Intel has 10. So you're telling me that that's going to be able to compete. It doesn't have to be the fastest frame rates, but those engines that are now being developed for multi-core are still going to work just fine on 4 cores, 8 threads, and still have up and all your other applications that you have, because in your real benchmarking stuff, I really think that the benchmarking stuff Intel has in here just marketing BS. They're just trying to pull your leg a little bit, get you to agree to it, and hopefully you'll buy their product. That's what it really felt like. And this is not just a session just to beat up on Intel. I think I beat up on AMD in one of their last marketing things too announcements, because they needed it. I mean, AMD hasn't done one in a while, but geez, don't copy AMD what the AMD was doing, and I didn't like before Intel. But the 4, I mean, yeah, this isn't 10 nanometer, but the 4 cores, 8 threads is just I like to see 6 cores and 12 threads. That's where I think at least your i7 has to be. Maybe you'll come up with an i9 with 8 cores, 16 threads, but your i7 needs to be 6 cores and 12 threads to really be something that I can buy and have in the future. Now let's talk a little bit about benchmarking, because this kind of goes together. And Intel still doesn't firmly say that what they're doing. They still kind of say, oh yeah, we're developing things, which is fine, Intel, but it's very hard for me to test stuff if I don't have it to verify your own benchmarks. Real world benchmarks. Now, some people don't like synthetics. I think synthetics are good for certain things, right? I can get a synthetic benchmark of me building a piece of code or software that is maybe stagnant and maybe not relevant for today, but it still tell me how the processor will perform, maybe building something close to or equivalent to that piece of software, right? If I have a project like a Visual Studio project with like 50 different, or let's do one I know I have 109 different projects, right? Well, how fast does that load? How fast does it build? How fast can it link? How is it linker? And all those items to it. That's really pertinent information to me. Now, that would be a static option overall, or I should say synthetic benchmark, but it's very relevant. Now, Cinebench, right? That some of that rendering stuff it does is actually used in certain softwares. So, while Intel may not, write home that it wins that one, is it because that Intel is just trying to pivot to something else that does win, or are they just afraid that synthetic benchmark isn't completely real? I mean, the real stuff is what people do on a day-to-day basis. Everything else is kind of synthetic on what the program is doing, in there. So at that time, right, that it has to be repeatable. Otherwise, how are you going to be able to test things going forward? So yeah, you can update your benchmarks and review sites to do that, but they come up with a sequence that's repeatable so that they can get the results to the consumer. Where in real life, if you want real life benchmarks, it is, I think it's just, doing what I do day to day, but that changes every day, right? I'm not doing the same exact thing each and every day. And even if I open up the Word document, it's a different Word document every day, right? So Intel needs to kind of understand that synthetic benchmarks have their place, right? Everything has their place, but how it performs on a day-to-day basis with 4 cores and 8 threads just isn't something that's, oh yeah, I should do that. I should do a 4-core and 8-thread upgrade. Now I have my work laptop is like a 6-core i7, 12 threads, and I make that thing cry. But my Surface is like a 2-core 4-thread. So should this is quite old. What is it? 4 years old or something like that now. It's a Surface Pro 4, so it's been out for a while. But telling me that on the Surface I should just go to like a 4-core 8-thread, to me, I'm just going to go with the ARM processor. Yeah, if I have a choice, I'm going to go with the ARM one because of the power savings, power ability. That's just where it is. And Windows is just a huge hog right now. Windows just goes through and just chews up processes like no tomorrow. That's maybe a video for another time of where Windows can improve. But with all of this, is this just ability for, how are you balancing everything with what Windows wants to do? Let's say this goes into a company, and a company puts on its own security software, all these other monitoring softwares, etc. Where does this machine stand then? Some companies put a lot on their systems, and then all of a sudden people are like, well, my systems are slow. Well, that's not exactly always a system's fault, besides the fact it's 4 cores and 8 threads. But it's the fact that, there's all these things to kind of help protect the company, so that if a user were to get malware or, phishing site, it can kind of be protected. Or, if an employee is nefarious and trying to steal stuff, that can be protected. So there's a lot of stuff on there that needs to be done, excluding just even Windows can do. So, yeah. there's just a lot. But let's get into I kind of touched on just the annoying things. Let's go on some cool features to wrap this up. Superfin. So this is the manufacturing part, and maybe I can scroll up here to get to it. If I remember, right here. Wait, or close. Gotta be close. So the Superfin technology. There it is. New Superfin technology. So they were kind of improving innovations of their, you know, their manufacturing process. Let's just put it like this way, with their improving gate process and your drain and your pitch, all that stuff. So this is really great technology. Now, this is part of their 10 nanometer. I believe it's like their 10. They call it their 10 nanometer Superfin. Now, Intel, take note on what you've done here. Apply this to 7 nanometer. Get a basic 7 nanometer up and running, then improve it. Well, kind of what TSMC does. Try to get on top of your manufacturing, and just keep moving forward, baby steps at a time. This is a great improvement. I'm actually really excited to see. Like I like to see a Tiger Lake processor just to be able to see some of the improvements of this part of it, right? This is supposed to help with, they said, what, higher frequencies, lower power, all that fun stuff that makes your processor perform better. The one thing I'm still hung up on is this 4 cores and 8 threads, right? In an i7. You know, if that was an i5, I'd be okay with it, but not an i7. So there's this stuff. I mean, they've even improved the metal stack on this, and I think that's part of the whole Superfin item here. And then they talk about the new graphics core. But these things are great, Intel. I love that you're going through and improving this, and it's a good progression. I think Intel just stay on the manufacturing side and doing small improvements like this to really help out where you're going. Now, also another thing I really like is the AI stuff. Now, part of me wonders how good the AI stuff will be and how useful it is. I just don't use that much AI stuff on a daily basis, right? You're showing off your Photoshop and everything else. It's still a growing technology. It's still at its infancy, right? It's still having developers kind of go through and utilize it in a piece of software or in the software they're developing to where it is. So realize that you're trying to sell something on the hope that this is going to be future proof, and maybe that's why you're selling Tiger Lake as future proofing that way. But Intel, excuse me, Intel, you have to realize that you kind of have to back down and, really talk about what is hitting the user today and then what they are going to want in the future. So do that progression, right? This is how we have the performance better today. This is how we improve your productivity. And as we move forward, these AI options, which we're putting in software today and working with developers, are going to progress you to get more use out of this processor in the future. Understand, Intel, there's a lot of this. Like, they had AI features where if you're doing a video call conferencing, they're taking out dog barking. That is something you did very well today. You just didn't have the progression of moving it forward correctly. I think in your presentation, the presentation was very not lined up and not smooth enough, in my opinion, to really kind of move the consumer or whoever's ever watching it in a way where they're wanting to do this. It was very much a we want to sell the 4800U. We don't think our processors fit in anywhere right now. We want you to use them for gaming. We want you to use them for, the business user. It's all over the place, Intel, and you have to clean up that messaging, make it nice and tight, and show users we have a processor that fits you. Here it is. Okay, gamers, we have a processor that fits you. Here it is. Right? These slower, like a gamer, for me, I usually don't play too many games on my Surface. I don't. If I'm going to do it, it's through the Xbox. It's a streaming thing. So I'm already streaming in the whole game. I'm not doing, I'm not playing it on here because it's just not powerful enough. I gotta have a desktop. I have an Xbox. So why, with these low processors, I think that would have been a great utilization of saying, with our battery life of having, what we can do is hit lower power extend the life that you can be on in an airport with a controller playing a game and having that streamed in and getting that immersive experience where you don't need to, play it on the device, right? And that's kind of where you could have went Intel with all of this. So overall, this presentation, hopefully you take it and you say, we're not ever doing this again. We're going to throw this out, but we're going to keep it in our mind so that we don't make those same mistakes. Same with AMD and the last ones. Let's focus on what you have done generation to generation, how you've improved your processor, how you're beating out your processor. Yep, make the processor stand on its own. Make the graphics, the Iris Xe graphics stand on its own, right? Make it sure that you are showing off. That SuperFin technology, now granted, where some people may be kind of boring, you did make it seem like, hey, we got 10 nanometer working now, show us. Instead of going over the top all the time, Intel, just, tell us what it is and let the product speak for itself. Yes, SuperFin may have been, taking us a little bit while to get out with 10 nanometer. But overall, until you saying something like that, when we fixed it and we're going forward with it, we're going to show you and try to build you better products to help you get done what you want to accomplish. And that's going to be in competing in a market, and maybe your processors don't fit that market right now because of what, AMD, Qualcomm, Nvidia, and all the competition is doing. Find the niche and then execute on it. I think that you have a great opportunity to do that even with Tiger Lake. I don't see this as the future product that you see it, but if you pick out the right niche, it could be, right? And I don't think that you guys have picked out anything. I think you're trying to make sure Tiger Lake fits everything, and it doesn't fit everything right now. Maybe as you release more products and get higher TDBs, it will, but right now it does not. So I do want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for helping this channel grow. I really appreciate it. And I do want your comments below on what you think of this Intel announcement. Even if you did watch it, or did you get started and it got pretty painful. So I appreciate those comments, and I really enjoy reading them. So with that, thank you guys for watching. And I do hope to try to keep up to 2 videos a week and get everything here out. I got the reviews coming up of the mouse and the keyboard that I had purchased, as well as some other things that I, for a little while ago, put the network stuff in, and I've been using it a lot. I want to get a good amount of use out of it before I did a review on it. So with that, I do thank you guys for watching. Thank you for helping this channel grow. I've been really appreciative of that. And until next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.